morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production. I'm your producer, Garnett L. Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask a question or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our host, Gift Pendleton.
Hi, thank you, Garnett. Welcome to season 4 of Invisible Women in Sports. I'm your host, Gift Pendleton. For this episode of Invisible Women in Sports, I have the pleasure of welcoming Irma Garcia, who's the current Director of Athletics for St. Francis College. Irma, thank you for joining us and welcome for coming on today.
Yes, thank you. Actually, thanking you. This is going to be fun. Anytime I get a chance to talk, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome, definitely. Now, do you remember what I told you yesterday?
Yes.
We're starting off with the 2 truths and a lie. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I'll start. Okay. So
Okay.
I have 7 siblings, and one of them is a brother. That's 1. I was a postal carrier. That's 2. I ran a New York City marathon. That's 3.
Okay. Well, I know the first one is a lie. Wait, no. The first one is the truth.
Okay.
You didn't run a marathon.
Is that the one? Is that what you're saying? I did not?
I'm saying you didn't run a marathon. Garnett says postal carrier. Matt Edelson says postal carrier.
I was a postal carrier. And so the thing with the marathon is that I do run marathons every day, right? In this job, I always run a marathon.
Okay.
Sprint, it's a marathon. It's a New York, and it's in New York, so it's kind of true. But I never ran a New York City marathon.
Right. So what I'm hearing is your marathon is more of like a mental battle, not necessarily more so feet hitting the pavement for 26 miles.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
Just a little bit different. All right. So are you ready for mine?
Shoot.
Okay. So my favorite color is green. That's 1. My favorite season is fall, and I'm right-handed. That's 3.
And I missed the last one?
I'm right-handed.
That you're right-handed.
You're right. I was trying to pay attention to see if you were remembering from yesterday, but now I know you're good. Okay, we can get started. All right.
Okay.
So yesterday we talked a lot about just your different experiences that kind of brought you to where you are today. But can you just remind us once again about the emphasis and the impact that your family life has had on you in general?
I always start with family. I'm one of 8, as I mentioned. And I do have only 1 brother, and we're all a year apart. And family's everything to me. And so being brought up in a Puerto Rican family in New York City, we never really had where it was just us 8 and mom and dad. It was always cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents. And I just never knew who was really my brother, who was my sibling, who wasn't, or sister. So I always kept that. And I always thought that was important. Everything that I learned and everything that I used at St. Francis has always been about family. We live it, we breathe it, we make sure that it happens every day and that we care about people, because that's important in family. We know that some people get along, some people don't get along, but no matter what, you have each other's back. And that's something I've always carried with me.
Definitely. I think that's super important. And just building off of that, what part of family kind of influenced or motivated you to do what you're doing today?
Well, so when I was young, we always played sports. It didn't matter. It was always the Garcias. So remember, we're all a year apart. It didn't matter. You still played. You played something. You were part of something. And so what we learned as a kid in sports was something that translated into what I'm doing today and what I want to do and what I always continue to do. My father always, he was a Brooklyn Dodger, and when they left, he refused to be a Met, New York Met. So he used to take me to the Yankee games, and he explained chess to me, even though some people may not think it's a sport, but for me, it's a sport. You're using your mind and somehow your hands moving. So I think that's some sort of a sport. And it's everything that I've learned when I was a kid as I grew up, and about adversity and dealing with team, because remember, having 8 siblings, it's a team. And we always brought that with us in whatever we do. In fact, I remember when I coached the first college game, my whole family came. They went up on the balcony. They're not supposed to be there. The balcony is supposed to be the presidential suite. And they were yelling, and I was so nervous, but they were so encouraging, because that's what it's all about. A team being brought together and being able to aspire and inspire.
Definitely. I wanted to touch back on a piece that you mentioned, that your father was a Brooklyn Dodger. To what degree do you think that his influence kind of puts you in the realm of sports?
Well, I mean, my dad passed away in 2012, and he was a person of very few words. But when he did speak, it was like E.F. Hutton. Everybody had to listen. I know you're too young to know what E.F. Hutton is, but I'm sure Garrett might know. Anyway, so he showed us what it's about, as we were going along, and every game that he took us, he showed us, he explained things to me. And so even with that concept going into what we're doing today, or what I've done with the student athletes, it's about having conversations. It's about explaining things, about listening and learning. Learning is huge. I think that every single day you have an opportunity to learn as soon as you wake up. And if you don't learn one thing today, then you're missing the boat. It's about being able to see things a little bit different than other people. And so my dad always showed me, look at things differently, allow people to see it differently, play differently. Doesn't mean you have to do it exactly the same way, because that's what's going to get you where you're going to be later on in life. And it really has translated into what I am and who I am today.
Definitely. I really like how you're saying that it's important to just personify the experience, right? Because you're saying everyone's experience is going to be different. So in what ways do you think your experience has been a little bit different than the average experience that brought you to where you are today?
That's a good question. So, I mean, I am different. I do things differently. I'm not the typical AD where it's all about, fundraising or making sure that the budget's done. To me, what matters the most to me is students, and allowing them, when we get them prospective student athletes, that they still get that same treatment when they got treated, how they got treated as a prospective student athlete as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and watching them graduate, because that's my favorite day, graduation. But I am the type of AD that is available, always around, visible, and that every student athlete has access to me. In fact, if you walked into my office and we were in a meeting and a student athlete needed something, I would say, excuse me, and I would take care of that student athlete. It's so important that how we look at things and what we give, what we offer to the student athlete, because to me, educating them a certain way and allowing them to grow and be true learners from whatever we're doing is I think, a really important part of who I am and what I want to translate to our student athletes.
Definitely. I think a big sentiment that I keep hearing just throughout as you're speaking is just how you're saying the importance of family and treating the people that you're around as family. And I think that especially in collegiate athletics, that's super important, right? Because we oftentimes just think about our team members as being like a part of the family, but in reality, there's a larger structure that we can kind of tap into. And so depending on the size of the school, that might also be challenging. So in what ways do you think that it's been an advantage to you to be a smaller school at this scale?
Because you're available. We're available. And, as I mentioned to you yesterday, I don't lead top, bottom, or bottom, top. I lead this way. And so the people that are surrounded by me are people that I really trust. And I know that they're loyal. Our coaches and staff, they work extremely hard. And so understanding them as a person, understanding them not as a coach, as a staff, but allowing them to be part of something bigger, and treating them like if they were my brothers and sisters or my aunt or uncle. At this point, they're all grandchildren or because I'm not that much older, but learning from them as well and allowing them to grow. So if your family, you're not gonna, when you have a kid, you don't just say throw them out there and that's it. You want them to learn every single day, and you help them through every process. So it's the same at St. Francis. The beauty of it is that we are one big family. When you walk into St. Francis, most people will say, wow, this place is so unique. You leave feeling a certain kind of way because not only in athletics, but you walk around, we live the Franciscan way, which is to serve. And so when you have that mindset of service and availability and a true learner and educating, that's all. And then everybody else picks up on that. I mean, one of the greatest things at St. Francis for me is when we do help those kids in internships or going to sit in front of a class and how to act a certain way. And when they go into a room, it feels great to know you can see who's a student athlete because they stand out. They can move that room, similar to when we go out fundraising. They do the same thing. So does the coaches and so does the staff. We're a team. We believe in each other. And even when we have our most difficult times, which everybody knows we're going through a difficult time, we're helping each other through it. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know what would happen. It's really a family-oriented place.
Definitely. And I think that it's awesome to know that St. Francis specifically has just that emphasis on not only, as you're saying, the student athlete development, but it also sounds like professional development for your staff and members, as well as just the regular student athlete in general. And I think that, that's not something that's really unique to your university. That's not something that happens everywhere. And I want to ask you, what do you think that other universities that might be at different sizes, different scales, different divisions can kind of implement to kind of come to the same model or get to the same progress that you've made?
I think it starts within yourself, right? If you're going to take a job where you're dealing with people, customer service is important. I mean, even now when you walk into a store and if someone treats you a certain way, you kind of either buy the item or you don't. You walk away because that's not what you want. You want customer service is really important. And so I would really emphasize anyone who gets into this field that you put people in front, that you put them first, and that you learn to listen and you learn to learn from them as well. And that creativity comes within a huge part of many people. Whatever they bring to the table is not just your way or the door. And so I would emphasize that it doesn't matter if you're at University of Central Florida, if you're at UCLA, or you're at St. Francis College, treating people the right way is the most important thing, and making sure that you're available to the student athletes. And I mean, there's some schools that maybe the president wants the director of athletics to fundraise, and that's the emphasis. But I would never take a job where the emphasis is not about people and about students. That's who we're serving, and we can't forget that. We want to make sure that they get the best holistic kind of atmosphere in wherever they are, and that they can carry that for a long time. That they're going to remember St. Francis. They're going to remember the mural behind me. They're going to remember Irma Garcia. Maybe one thing, maybe because I don't lose my mind, but I don't have to. When the student athlete's in trouble, they walk into my office, I just look at them and they start crying and that's it. It's over. Okay, did you learn? Yes. Okay. The fact is that you need to be available to really emphasize change, or to make change, or to make something from a negative to a positive. You need to be available.
Definitely. There are so many key points that I don't want to just gloss over, but re-emphasize how you're saying that one is so important to just be aligned with your mission, right? And the importance of taking a job that you realize is something that you value, right? You're going to have a different emphasis on that, but also being in alignment with the university and kind of what they're seeing. There's like you're saying, be in contact with the president and things of that nature, but also being of service. I think those three are some key components of just who can take anywhere. And I think that can definitely just help you in any job that you're in, right? Because I think oftentimes, money is a very important factor nowadays. Like, you need money to survive, but in what ways can you still do both, and how can you kind of manage both?
Well, for us, we're creating leaders. And in order for you to create a leader, it's just doesn't happen just giving them an area to figure it out. And if you get it, you get it, and that's it. It doesn't work that way. Everything that we do, we have to work for. Hard work is part of everything we do, and it's important. And to learn that, you need it's like the Verizon, right? You turn around, there's like 100 people behind you. You need that. You can't just do it yourself, and you can't just say, "Oh, I got this." Or even for a coach, when they're trying to implement their policies and procedures, their policies are going to be important, but the most important thing, they're sticking with the mission of the college and mission of the athletic department. And how do we get that translated to all our student athletes and everyone who works around us, including the community, which is a huge part of us, right? So it's not just working within the college, but working outside the college. One of the greatest things was that when we had to find fields this year, and I had to knock on doors, people opened them. Like, it was like, I know there's some other institutions that say, "How did you do that?" So because we were always kind to them. We were always inviting. When they needed something, we were there to help. Now, I couldn't help everybody, but we were there to help. If I could help, we were there. And so when I asked for the same, reciprocate that, it was there. So I think it's the holistic look at just not within, but outside. When you walk outside, if you're not listening to the birds, something's wrong. I mean, you got to be able to listen to things that are around you and to see beyond who you are or beyond what's 2 steps in front of you. In New York City, it's like that anyways. You have to see like a block away, or else you may step in something that you may not want to step into.
Definitely. And I think from what you're saying, it just reminds me about the importance of being inclusive, but also being receptive to those around you and kind of working with them and not having your own narrative. And I just think it's interesting because I recently went to New York for the first time, and I'm from Chicago. Chicago only has 3 million people. New York, I didn't even know how many million people I was around at that point. But just in terms of that, you're around so many different people. So the fact that you're able to even have that mentality of still being receptive and working with those around you, despite of the numbers, I think that's something that's really important. It shows how progressive you guys have been.
Yes, for sure.
So I wanted to ask you, considering that, your approach is definitely of service, we're working with other people, and it sounds like you definitely have a put others first approach. How do you then balance that with kind of giving back to yourself and recharging, considering the work that you do?
It's not just about work. I think the important thing is to really if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of anybody else. And so to me, I did this retreat one time, and it's to walk the life of St. Francis. And so I look at things differently ever since 2014. And I say that because I fill my heart every day. Somebody takes a little bit away, I pour some more into it. Somebody does something else, I pour some more. By the end of the night, I would like to know that my heart is full. I try to find joy in everything I do. And I just think it's important that you take care of yourself. I mean, if you're not healthy, or I don't run a marathon, but I ran three half marathons. I taught myself how to play guitar during COVID, right? So these are little things that you tend to do to try to make yourself better, because everybody sees if you're healthy or you're not. Everybody sees when you're sad and when you're not. And there's times when I leave my house and I'm not in the right place. But when I go to St. Francis, it's important that they see I'm in the right place. So I need to find a way between the time I leave my house and the time I get to St. Francis, because they're all counting on you to have that energy, right? If you don't have energy, nobody else is going to have energy. They're like feeding off you. So I have to figure out what I need to do. Now, that's not something that just, oh yeah, I've been doing all my life. No, it has not. It's something that I work really hard every day. I think it's important that if you don't, quality over quantity doesn't, it's not about quantity. It's not about working 40 hours in one day. Some people, I mean, I'm being exaggerated here, but it's not about all these hours that you have to work. It's about managing your time, but making sure that you are better. It's about you first before you can take anyone else. It's just like when you fly on the airline, right? They say always put the mask on first before you can put it on somebody else. You have to take care of yourself before somebody else. And when you do that and you give your full heart and your heart is full and you feel that kind of joy, then you can do any kind of work. You can give me all the work in the world. I'm going to find a way to have joy in doing that because I feel good about who I am and what I'm doing.
Definitely. And I think it's so important to kind of remember that joy does come from within. It's not something that anyone else can give you. And I think that that's just a really great thing to think about, because life is always going to present a different set of challenges, but it's not even about that. It's about how you can kind of work with that and not against that, for sure. So I really love that and I admire that.
I also want to add that, and I mentioned this before, is that we laugh a lot at St. Francis. We don't take things so serious that we've done things as a group that are just fun in the last minute, like let's do something and it's a last minute kind of thing and we have fun. Pre-COVID, that was just like a normal thing. After COVID, where the college didn't have people coming back as often, we went into the hybrid world. Just whoever's in that area, we tend to laugh. We tend to find out, how's your family? Because it goes back to what I said, right? Family, how's your day going? Because you don't know, again, they don't know that maybe my mom was sick and she's 90 something and I'm trying to deal with that, right? They don't know. But once somebody asks you, how's your mom? Oh, you care. The care part comes in. And so we find a way to laugh. We find a way to really emphasize family. We find a way to show that we really do care about people.
Definitely. And we've kind of been talking about what your role is, but we've never really kind of defined the actual roles of an athletic director. I know for me, I'm like, there are so many different things that you do, but can you just tell us, I guess, explicitly what your role entails?
Well, the most important thing, you put out fires, right? But if you assign people to help you put out those fires, those are your real ADs. When I was coaching, I was also the senior woman administrator as an assistant AD. So I've done it all. Except for probably communications. And even then, I did some, videoing because nobody would do that. So I would do a little bit of that. But I did every role. But now it's more of, it's ideal. I sit on the president's cabinet. And so I kind of try to make sure athletics is always fitting in with the college and the college fitting in with athletics. So most of my job is really dealing with the president, dealing with my senior staff, dealing with faculty. I'm very big with faculty. I love teaching. That's the one thing that I always love to do. So I really love to, when the faculty is like my favorite group, and most people say you're nuts, but they are. And now my office is where most faculty come by and they sit down and talk to me. But it's my job every day changes. It's one day, it's sitting with the president, and next day is with alumni, next day is fundraising, next day is faculty, and after that, student athletes in between are coming in and going. But if you have a good staff, which I do, and you have people who really care about students the same way I do, and they are in place to help and know that they can be as creative if they want and come to me and be as creative. The more creative, the better it is for me. I love something that's not supposed to be happening, and all of a sudden we laugh about it and go, okay, well, let's try it. So I do that a lot. As an AD, I'm constantly going, yeah, all right, that sounds like a fun thing to do. Let's do it. But it changes every day. But I can't speak for other athletic directors because everybody pretty much has a pinpoint what an AD is. But I'll tell you one thing, if you're going to go in this role, and sometimes there's that job description that tells you exactly what you're supposed to be doing, I'm completely opposite of what I'm supposed to be doing. So I like to do things backwards or whatever. And my job is always to make sure that the kids are doing fine. For me, I think that's the role of a director of athletics.
Definitely. I love that. And I think that the role of an athletic director, it's definitely not an easy feat or an achievement at all. But it just shows that you've accomplished so much. You're a trailblazer, and just shows your level of expertise in the field. So for those that don't know, you went to St. Francis College for undergrad, correct?
Correct.
And so now that you're an athletic director, you have a really unique experience and just trajectory of getting to where you are today. And so I guess because you've had the look in, what can you think of the ways that from the time that you were in college and an athlete till now, how St. Francis College has changed or stayed the same for you?
Well, no, it definitely has not stayed the same. I mean, I'm in 35 years. That's a long time. And when I was in college, I was in trouble most of the time. So it didn't really, I hope, I'm not in trouble now. So that's pretty good. So I think I'll always treasure and cherish St. Francis. It's part of who I am. And it's a place that I love so much. And because my love for St. Francis, I want people to have the same experience I did as a student athlete at St. Francis College, as an administrator at St. Francis College, that people can turn around and say, wow, I want her job. She looks like she's having fun. I want her job. That's the biggest goal. And I could say it as I got older, I never forget where I came from. Never. I'll never forget what it felt like to be my first practice, my first class. And so I know what those kids are going through. I'll never forget my first game, my first practice as a coach. I want the coaches to have that as well. And administrators coming in saying, what does she really expect? Is she crazy? She really wants me to do that? And for them, I wanted to know that their creativity is what's going to make St. Francis even a better place. It's never the same, and it shouldn't be the same. What you want to do is carry every day more and more uniqueness of the place and make it like a wholesome and make it part of you. And so that when people ask about St. Francis, when you ask people who work there or even kids, they smile. They smile because they know it's a special place. So to me, growing up in St. Francis has been fun. Sometimes, not so much fun. But at the end of the day, I find fun out of it.
Definitely. And I think it just reminds me of the importance of having skin in the game, right? It's one thing to just be in a role or taking like, okay, well, this allows me to get to here or whatever. But when you're actually invested in it, you know what it's like to be in that person's shoes. You know what those people are going through. You have a different level of empathy, but you also have a different level of respect for the role in the organization. And I think that those are definitely key components of success wherever you go. And clearly St. Francis College has shown its success. So I think that's just an awesome thing to do. I want to stop here for a second and tell everyone that we're getting closer towards the end. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat. I will ask 2 more questions and then I will turn to the Q&A. So now is your time to ask whatever questions you would like. All right, and now I wanted to just kind of get into, considering that you're the first Latina athletic director of Division I university, I think that's by itself, that's a mic drop. And I think that considering women of color experience a lot of different challenges than most, it also shows that your level of tenacity and just perseverance. So if you would like to speak, what challenges do you think that of kind of you faced, but also how you were able to overcome those?
No, there were many challenges. When 2007, there weren't that many female athletic directors. Now I'm really proud to see the change and many more women of color. But I remember being at this NACWA, and now it's Women's Leaders, and Gloria Navarez was in there with me, and she was like, "Sister, I think you're it. I think you're the first one." I'm like, "Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? I mean, it's 2007." And she's like, "No, I think you're it. You're it." And at the time, I had the interim to find out I was it, right? And she was very instrumental in making sure that everybody recognized that we did have our first Latina, Hispanic. I use it as Hispanics. Most people say Latina, Hispanic, women's athletic director. But I remember very early on, it didn't matter who was in the room, and most of the time all the ADs were male, and I had to stand out. Although I did stood out, right? I did stand out. It was like, the only female, but I would raise my hand, and I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. Trust me, some of the stuff that people talk about, I have no idea what they're saying. It's over my head. Or probably most of the time, I'm just not really paying attention to that specific thing. But right away, I would raise my hand. I would say anything, and I know what they were saying. Does she know what she's doing? And nobody would say anything, but they would have that respect, the fact that I was present. I wanted them to know that I was present. And a lot of it too is like, even when coaching, my assistant was a male, and every time I went to a game that wasn't in the conference, within the conference, they would just automatically think that he was the coach. It came to a point where he would just say, just right as soon as we walk in, he would say, "This is Irma Garcia, the women's basketball coach." I mean, I could go on and on, but I'll tell you what, it frustrates me a little bit about challenges, right? I mean, no matter what, we're always challenged with something. I mean, you walk outside, you may be challenged just to step outside or step over something, but it's what you make of it. It's you take a challenge and you make it into a positive. You make it into something that you will make. It'll be a product of who you are. And so, for every challenge that I've had, and I've had my share, I'm sure you're young, you will have your share. But you'll remember this. You remember that the fact is that you should welcome it. You should welcome failures. You should welcome the fact that you're going to learn something from that challenge. How you get around it, climb over it, open the door, swim through it. I'm not really a good swimmer, but go around it, ride your bike through it. It doesn't matter. You're going to get through it, right? But it's the lessons that you're going to learn with those challenges. So to me, I love challenges. The fact that most of the time that we were in this gym behind me, there was always a challenge. And some people would say, "Oh, there's something wrong." No, that's a challenge. That's all right. Who's going to figure it out? Make it fun, right? Make it fun to figure out what you can do to get around that challenge. Challenges are just another thing that's in your way that you can get around. And the beauty of it is how you're going to get around it, how you can get through that, and then make something out of it. And then look back behind you and say, "Oh, that was fun. That was a fun challenge." Make it fun.
Definitely. I love that. And the last question before the Q&A is, what experience or what is one moment that you would love to reflect on that you were able to say, "Wow, I was able to overcome this"?
Just being who I am as an AD. I'm looking back and I'm blown away. The fact that the ability that someone gave me a chance, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. In fact, most women will say, "I'm not ready for that." Men are completely different. They'll think if they see the color blue, "Oh yeah, I know the school is blue, red, and I know how to handle that." They'll come up with something. And for us, we don't. We wait, to see the perfect job for us and then say, oh, okay, I can do it. But in reality, we can do almost anything. And I think I'm a product of that. The ability to take something on, a difficult job, and make it my own, and include as many people as I can, and make something out of it. I'm very proud of what I've accomplished. Super excited about the fact that our student athletes, the past and the present, have done incredible things, and they make us proud, make me very proud. And so my accomplishments is them, and I'm hoping that I'm their accomplishment as well, because we're all in this together.
Definitely. And so with that, I will be turning over to the chat for questions.
What do you mean, it's over?
No, definitely not
Okay.
over. This is just the Q&A portion. All right. And so starting from Calandra Valentine, she says, I love it. The world would be a much better place of people had more people had your loving, caring mindset.
Thank
First
you.
question comes from Matt Edelson. Can Irma talk about how she prepares her staff to ask to also be athletic directors?
I'm sorry, what was the question? How?
Can you talk about how you prepare your staff to be athletic directors?
Yeah, as soon as they come in, when I interview staff, I always tell them, I need you for at least 3 years. And part of being a staff, and how I see it, is that you got to be able to wear many hats. Just because you come in as the compliance officer doesn't mean that you're not going to do some sort of game management, or that doesn't mean that you're not going to take over as AD for one day. I really emphasize our staff to do more with little. And if they can do that, they're going to be ready. For me, I always prepare every single person that has come under me, and I take a lot of pride. Many of them already have AD jobs. It's not about Irma just being the AD. Everybody who works with me knows that they can all be the director of athletics, and they've all shown to me that they're able to do that just by working hard, just by thinking outside the box, using your voice. I mean, when my staff meetings are first of all fun, of course, and we go around and tell me what's going on, and everybody has to contribute. You know, if there's again a challenge, how are we going to face? What we're faced with? How we're going to deal with it? Now, some things at the end of the day, I have the final say as the director of athletics. With this, more than many times, I allow people to take over, and I can watch. I think it's important that we all, especially, and I'm trying to do this for women of color and just women alone, just to get out there and just meet people and be mentored by people that just want to teach you. I'm a teacher. I'm always going to be a teacher. I'll never stop teaching. And I hope that my staff can say the same, that they have fun, and that when they go out there, which I see many of my staff doing some great, wonderful things.
Definitely.
Thank you for the question.
Our next question comes from Garnet Overby. You have seen the landscape of college sports change over the years, especially for student athletes. What advice would you give student athletes about NIL?
Oof. Ay, Dios mío. All right. Well, I mean, the landscape of NCAA has changed completely, and it continues to change. And I think that the approach is a more holistic approach, right? They're trying to make sure that the student has control of who they are in the space that they are, and that if their name's being used, the image or likeness, I mean, that's really important. What my concern is with that is that once you start dealing with that amount of money, and we're watching this now, right? There's some student athletes that they're getting like $1 million, $2 million just from the process, that you become an employee. You know, where's that line that you're no longer enjoying the game? You're no longer playing because you love the game, because you really just want to be part of a team and win championships. and as opposed to being that individual person going into that. Yeah, I'm going to do all that, but I'm going to really pay attention to me. I mean, I think it has to be a balance. I don't have the answers. I don't. And we don't have that many kids. We have maybe 2 or 3 kids that were part of that NIL. And I was happy for them because they did get some money, but when they get to the extreme where you're getting millions of dollars, I don't know what happens then. I think it's gonna, unfortunately, and now that with Charlie Baker as the person in charge, I mean, it's gonna get political, right? With everything else that we deal with, it becomes political. So I don't know about all that. So I want to stay out of it and try to say that, you know, I hope that the kids do well, but you got to be careful because I think the long run, the NCAA is going into some sort of employees. We're going to be coaching kids that are going to be employees.
Got it. Our next question is from Calandra Valentine. What's your advice for someone that is trying to gain athletics employment after being graduated over 7 years?
You're breaking up, so ask me one more time. Sorry.
What's your advice to someone that's trying to gain athletics employment after being graduated over 7 years?
Is a student athlete that graduated?
It's someone that's been out of college 7 years trying to gain.
Out of college. Oh,
yes.
Okay.
No problem.
That's easy. That's easy. Go knock on doors and say you've been at it for 7 years and explain who you are and what you can bring to the table. And if you come into the space saying I worked out, I don't have a job, I haven't been in it 7 years, right there, then no one's gonna hire you. If you go in there with energy and say, hey, 7 years ago, this is what I did, and now I'm even 7 years out of it, this is what I've learned, and these are things that I'm going to bring to the table. And if that person understands the role that they want to go into at that university or college, it's easy. It's the way you present yourself. It's like you walk the walk, talk the talk, something like that. You know, I always talk about when you go into a space, you have to have some sort of energy, and no one's going to hire anybody who doesn't have any energy. Trust me. If you walk in, you may be the brightest person in the world, and if you talk to me a certain monotone way, there's nothing I can do because you're not going to bring it to my kids. And that's what it's all about. You got to be able to move the room and feel good about who you are and how you're going to contribute. And so 7 years, 15 years, I've hired people that have been out for a long time, but it's their energy when they come in and they want to be part of something special. Hey, sure, let's be, I would welcome that. So it's not a problem if you're out. Don't use that as a crutch. Always remember, now that's your challenge. Remember, whoever asked that question, that's the challenge here. So find a way to make that challenge fun and get through it.
Definitely. Our next question is, what advice would you give administrators in how to lead student athletes through this NIL era?
Well, I think they need to be educated. So every conference has somebody that is more involved in understanding it. And many institutions now hired somebody just specifically for NIL. And plus, I mean, we have computers, right? You should really get yourself informed about what you need to do. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say, can someone explain this to me? If you don't understand, and I'm the first one, remember we talked about, sometimes some things go over my head. If you use a big word, I'm going to be looking at you like, okay, that's just a big word to me. I don't know what you're saying, but okay. The fact is that educate yourself. Learn about what it is at that institution. Every institution is different, or their rules, or maybe within the conference. Every conference has a little tab and it talks about NIL. Be more familiar with it. And I can't give you that specific advice. You really need to do your homework and call people and find out more about what is it that you want to do, and how do you get it more involved and learn more about it, and how to reinstate yourself in the phase that you're going to get the money that you really want.
Definitely. Another question is, if you had to do over a moment, seeing how this profession has changed, what has changed, what do you wish you could go back and do differently?
Me personally, is this from one of my friends? Has to be. Sounds like a friend.
Jackie Blackett.
That's, oh my gosh, she's one of my best friends.
Oh.
Hey, Jackie. So if I had to do it all over again, I would do it the same way. I don't know, maybe maybe go around the corner to the left side instead of the right side. I've had an incredible career. And so if I had to change anything, nothing. All the challenges that I had, it's okay. It's okay. I've gotten through them. And what I think that will be interesting is what's going to happen in the landscape of NCAA and how I can help more people. As I get older, I find myself back to when I was a young person in administration, athletics, is helping people. That's all I do. I love it. I'm not going to change. I'm never going to change.
Definitely. And also we wanted to in the chat wanted to ask what the importance of the mural was behind you.
What's the importance of
the mural behind you and your backdrop?
Okay. So that 2017 President Miguel came to St. Francis as the latest president. And he said, what would you like to do? Give me one thing you want to do that you couldn't get done. I said, I want to do graffiti. He goes, what? Yeah, graffiti. He goes, okay. And he said yes, but he didn't tell me, what I can and cannot do. So, I'm from, it's considered, it's the hood in Brooklyn. And that's all I knew when I was growing up was about graffiti. That's showing my age. And so it was always been my heart to find somebody to do a mural that would represent who we are. And we are Brooklyn tough at St. Francis. We're that resilient little dog that just doesn't go away. And we go at it until we get what we want, right? So in this mural has everything that we represent at St. Francis. There's the train, which you always got to take a train. There's the school, there's the Brooklyn Bridge, and we're in Brooklyn Heights, which is a nice area with brownstones. And as I was telling Garrett, is that in there in Brooklyn Heights, there is, we're known for pizza. So in there somewhere, there's a pizza, a slice of pizza, but you need to find it. But when he did see it, and the guys who did this they were my age. And I could have sworn the scaffold was gonna fall, but they did an incredible job. They took a piece of paper and they just sprayed and they did a graffiti. So it's, I take a lot of pride of that mural behind me.
That's awesome. And what part of Brooklyn are you from?
I'm from South Side, Williamsburg. So it's predominantly Puerto Ricans. New Yorkers.
See, I'm learning.
It's New Yorkers.
New Yorkers, got it.
Yeah. Because Puerto Ricans don't want you to be called Puerto Ricans if you're from New York. So you got to be called New Yorkers.
That makes sense. I got it. It makes sense. And as we're closing out, what is something that you're taking from the past experiences that you've had into the next chapter of your life?
Well, there's a lot I want to take with me in my next chapter, but it's grace and joy. I just find joy in everything that I do, and I am grateful, super grateful, and want to be able to maintain who I am, and whatever I do, and whoever I meet, and how I can influence and help other people will always be my calling. That's what the good Lord said. And so I'm waiting for him to say, all right, this is what you're going to do next. But I'm sure he has something better for me planned.
Got it. And finally, is there any piece of life advice that you would like to share?
Advice for people?
Yes.
Yeah. So advice, I really think that people should be listening more. I think that people should learn from each other. I think people should be open to different ideas and the way people share their ways of doing things. I think that if you get an opportunity to fill your heart every day, and even if you don't fill it up to the top, if you get maybe 75%, 70%, you're getting there. But important for you to do the things you always love to do, whether it's going to take you 10 years, 20 years, but just to constantly keep changing, keep evolving, and find joy in everything that you do.
Definitely. And I want to say thank you once again for being an inspiration and taking the time out to talk to me from today, yesterday, as well as sharing your knowledge with all of us. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you
No
for having me. This has been really a lot of fun. Thank you. Okay.
Of course. And with that, I want to say we thank you for all of the support of Invisible Women in Sport. We are a non-for-profit organization with other programs that impact various social justice issues. We rely on donors and sponsors to stand with us and support our ongoing work. Please use the QR code on the screen to make a financial donation. Your financial support is greatly appreciated. A special shout out once again and thank you to our guest Irma and the Invisible Women in Sports team, our producer Garnett L. Overby III, and our senior advising consultant Matt Edelson. Thank you to all the organizations that registered for Irma's episode. We would like to extend a special shout out to St. Francis College. We would like to extend a special shout out to the Institute for Sport and Social Justice. Please follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date and informed on future programs at Institute SSJ. If you ever miss an episode, we've got you covered on YouTube channel at Institute SSJ. We have all of the episodes posted and up to date. Also, we receive a lot of inquiries about if we have any connections to internships. If any of our supporters or members have internships available, please send your information to our producer, Garnett Overby at goverby@sportandsocialjustice.org so we can send it out to the people reaching out to us. Our next guest will be Christina Roybo, Vice President of Athletics in Northern Kentucky University on May 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Viewers, we need your feedback to make Invisible Women in Sport the best it can be. Following today's episode, you receive a short survey. It will take about 90 seconds to complete. Please complete it and submit it back to us. Once again, I am your host, Gift Pendleton for Invisible Women in Sports webcast. See us now.